Whittaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. I'm Andrew.
I'm Lee.
And this is Whittaker Weekly. Let's get right into it. You found a whole bunch of news to share.
I did. So earlier this year, it was announced that Interviews with Monster Girls is getting a season 2, but they're not expecting it until maybe fall or winter 2020 release.
Okay.
So that's something to look forward to.
Awesome. Yeah, especially after we just talked about this episode. what we're going to talk about this episode.
We'll talk about season 1, but yeah, season 2's been announced, so that's good news. Additionally, One Piece Stampede, the One Piece film, is set to premiere to screen this fall in the U.S. and Canada.
Okay.
So we might see that in select theaters. So those of you who are interested in that. Now a little bit of bad news. Both the Violet Evergarden film and the Yuri on Ice film have been delayed due to the fire at.
Were these delayed for the American openings?
No, just entirely. They thought maybe they could make their original planned openings despite the fire, but it turns out they cannot. That these are both of these were Kyoto Animation projects that are going to be delayed due to circumstances.
Okay.
So.
Because there actually is a Violet Evergarden film out right now.
Yes, but they had another one in the works that was set to come out January 10th. And that looks like it's going to be delayed.
Yep. Okay. And for a little bit of news that I found, the live-action Kaguya-sama Love is War, the incredible anime and manga about two tsunderes falling in love with each other.
Yes.
It is currently number 1 in the box office in Japan. It opened number 1 for its first weekend. Beating out Weathering with You, which has been sitting at number 1 for several weeks, if this is correct, and beat out the new One Piece movie and the Konosuba movie, which is still doing fairly well. That's 9th in Japan right now. So,
sure.
Okay. And just, I guess, in a little bit of other news, Crunchyroll has stated that it is going to bring the film over, the Konosuba movie. So
fantastic. When are we going to get that? Do they have
I don't know.
Do they have a release date planned? Is it after it's out of theaters, maybe?
No, they're just saying that probably after it's out of theaters. But yeah, it's just that Crunchyroll is planning on bringing it over. Whether we're going to see a limited release in theaters, like a Fathom Events sort of thing, or if they're just going to add the movie to Crunchyroll.com. Not sure. But anyways, they are going to be bringing the movie over, so good. We get to see that animated.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, that's it for the news. Let's go ahead and move right into 3 episodes in.
All right. This week it was your turn to pick.
It was my turn to pick, and I picked an anime based off of a manga that I absolutely adore. And this is week 2 of Schools with a Twist.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with Interviews with Monster Girls. Succubi, Dulahans, Snow Women, and Vampires. We're a little different from humans and called demi-humans. Lately, we've been called demis. This is a stimulating and heartful school demi-human comedy featuring those very unique demis and a high school teacher named Takahashi Tetsuo, who's highly interested in learning more about their daily lives and habits. And I think for the most part, I'll go ahead and chime in every now and then, but I kind of want to hear what you thought about this, just because I went in knowing where this goes. And I want to say real fast, this moves fast. Okay, this show, and it doesn't feel rushed, but it's moving at a very good pace. The first 3 episodes cover the first 10 chapters of the manga. So I'll have to reread the first one to see if they skipped over anything. I don't think they did, not from my memory. But I was very surprised at how quickly, how I did not think we would get to where we got to in episode 3. But anyways, so let's go ahead and just get right into it.
Okay, so the first episode starts with a generic kind of mysterious opening where we see it's sunset. We see a blonde girl humming some traditional tune to herself, gazing out over the city and looking up at her new school. And this guy comes up to her and just say, "What are you doing here?" And she looks at him. And she runs away. We don't know anything about either of these characters to start. And then the opening credits roll. So this is one of the anime that opening credits roll on the first episode. So I don't know if there's a pattern to this or not, but this is one of those that does. And the opening credits, it's a nice little montage that kind of really does introduce the characters. Now, something that's going on in the opening credits sequence is it features our teacher, Takahashi, pulling a collection of books off a shelf, and then the bookshelf just about to lean over and fall down on top of him. And then it's an homage to books. It's a montage of books. And one of them that opens up is a pop-up book. And this pop-up book features all of these scenes that kind of introduce, okay, this is what you think of a vampire. This is our vampire. This is what you think of a Doulahan. This is our Doulahan. This is what you think of a snow woman.
This is our snow woman.
And then you see a picture of this woman dying on a bed, and a horse peeking in from from behind a curtain. And then at this moment, the succubus teacher walks in, looking around like, what's this? And then a scantily clad succubus on a string drops in just above the
her. It's her too.
It's her. It is her.
It's her in like this swimsuit, like typical succubus outfit of like a one-piece swimsuit, wings on the back, and giving kind of this scandalous look, or succulent look.
And she doesn't want anyone to see this, so she starts covering it up.
She out and just jumps towards the camera to try to get it to go away.
And I just absolutely loved that scene. It actually reminded me of something else I saw.
So great.
I was browsing around Facebook recently, and what's it called? Some creepypasta page shared a video that was the pop-up book of phobias.
Oh.
And so they went through page by page showing it. Well, apparently the first page, you pop it open, and suddenly sticking right at you is a dentist drill.
Oh, no.
That's the first page, is the dentist drilling right at you. And then it just goes into different things. There's arachnophobia, acrophobia, aerophobia. At least those are the A's. It's not really in alphabetical order. There's also claustrophobia, and then one of the other scary episodes is you open it up and there's a bunch of bored, disinterested faces staring at you, and the thing that pops up at you is a microphone. It's a fear of public speaking. This is the pop-up book of phobias.
I know a couple people who would kill me if I were to get that for them. Yeah. That'd be worth dying for, though. That'd be a great joke. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway.
So the first episode starts off again where our main character, Takahashi, is in the first day of school teachers meeting hosted by the principal. And the principal's talking, and he's not really paying attention. A co-worker sitting next to him tries to strike up a conversation, and he replies a little too loudly to be like, "No, we're keeping this quiet. We're not actually supposed to be talking." Kind of hushed voices.
They're talking about a new teacher, or like the principal's talking about a new teacher who's supposed to be there but is late. She must be quite the person to be late on her first day, type thing. So yeah.
And so while they're talking about her being late, It's revealed during this conversation that Takahashi wished that he had done his college thesis on demis. He really is very interested in demis. Um,
But they
and
wouldn't let him interview
humans.
them.
But
So he had
yeah,
to just thesis on something else.
so it's always been a dream of his to interview monster girls, but he has yet to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's when the teacher walks in, who is missing, saying how sorry she was. She missed the first train, and it was they were doing repairs on one of the cars, and the train she had to take had a lot of people in it, and so she's sorry that she's really late. And it doesn't really come up as to why that's really a problem
Well,
until later. They
well, the
reveal
principal
what.
then says, "Oh, if that's the case, then don't worry about it." Whereas Takahashi's just like, "Wait, how's that an excuse? There was a lot of people on the train.
Like there's always a lot of people on the train. How is that an excuse?
Yeah, how's that an excuse?" And then the
And
teacher's
then
like, "Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's a perfect." The other teacher was talking to him says, "Yeah, no, that's a perfectly valid excuse because you see she," and then she goes up and introduces herself.
she introduces
So,
herself. She's the new math teacher, and she's a succubus.
and rather than being in a regular uniform like everybody else, she's wearing a big pair of glasses. She's got her hair in a very simple, straight ponytail, nothing fancy, nothing flashy, and she's wearing a red tracksuit.
Yes. The least attractive get up she could possibly wear and still be professionally
Mm-hmm.
at a school.
And our main character, Takahashi, who is probably in his early 30s at this point, from the way
Yes.
the show is kind of set up,
Uh-huh.
from some information we kind of learned later on. Um, we learned that Saki or Sato, the succubus, she's 24, and she says to one of the girls in the show that, "Oh, well, you're like Takahashi and I," referring to herself, the succubus, we've got about the same difference in our ages between you and me. And the girl is 15, 16 at that time, so he's probably about 32, 33.
Yeah. So there's an
So,
eight. So there's an 8 to 10 year difference
yeah.
between the succubus and the students, and then an equal distance between her
Mhm.
and Takahashi is
And the
established
reason I,
in episode 3.
the reason I wanted to point that out is just because it just kind of ends with him saying, "Oh, I finally met one."
Yes.
So, hmm
Well, cut to they're prepping the gym for what is probably going to be a major student assembly. Um, and kids are laying out large mats, setting up chairs. Some of the kids are lazing about. Takahashi is berating the lazy one, saying, "Come on, get back to work." And uh, what's her name? Okay, Sato, the succubus, was up a ladder trying to hang a banner, and she's not entirely sure whether it was straight or not. Well, she reacts negatively to being snuck up upon. She's easily startled. And so Takahashi tries to introduce himself and become friendly with her, and so he says hi and offers to shake her hand.
hmm
Not now. Whether the succubus knows that he knows what touching her would end up doing, she immediately just starts backing away, trips over the ladder that she was using, and then starts using the ladder as a barrier between herself and Takahashi. As self in self-defense. She's holding this ladder sideways. This which just strikes back to that Jackie Chan movie where he used a ladder in one of his kung fu
Was that
fights.
Operation Condor?
Might have been Operation Condor. I just know that
Mm.
one of the greatest things about Jackie Chan is his willingness to do 100 takes, get it right, and then put some of the bad takes in the blooper reel to let you know that yes, he is human.
First Strike. It's in First Strike. My bad. I
Okay.
just Googled Jackie Chan ladder and it brought up First Strike. So,
Okay. So yeah, nothing so dramatic, but it was a little bit remnant of that.
hmm hmm
Um,
um, and like he is trying to talk to her, and she's just keeping a safe distance from him at all times, and just leaves.
yeah,
And he's just
and
like, "Oh, huh."
He gets another opportunity to try again, and she takes the opportunity to leave again. And just trying to drive herself away from him. It's at that point that he starts. So he rounds a corner and sees the blonde girl that he saw before.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to hit it off pretty quickly in terms of,
Yeah.
oh, hey, you're you. Oh, yeah, you're you. Well, why did you run away from me? Well, you're a strange man approaching me in the middle of the night. I thought running away I thought you should praise me for having
Mm-hmm.
such wisdom to.
Well, I was just so like, what were you doing out so late at night? And she's just like, oh, I tried on my new uniform and I just got so excited to go ahead and about it. And I went to go see the school and yeah, and then like there's that
Uh-huh.
what you just said as well. It's a real cute scene and they hit it off really well, really
Yeah.
quickly. This girl ends her name ends up being Hikari.
Hmm.
And she is a sweetheart. She's very upbeat, very lively, a very friendly, forward girl, not afraid to say what's on her mind.
Hmm.
Um, but she says, "Oh, wait, that's right. I'm glad it's you that I ran into. My friend needs help. I need somebody
Yes.
to help me take her to the nurse's office." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, let's go." And then it
And
cuts
so
as
they're
they're
going
walking down.
so they're going down the hallway, and that's when he kind of says, like, "Are you a health? Aren't you the health teacher?" Well, I'm a biology teacher, but I can tell just by looking at someone's face whether they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
Goes to there's just this beautifully timed scene where it just cuts and there's kind of this horror music vibe going on and there's this green flame in front of him, there's just this green light and he's just looking down like what, and the camera cuts back and it's the lower body of a Dullahan. It's the Dullahan without a head.
Yes,
um
just sitting there leaning against a window or a bench seat or something like that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
And
and
so
like, there's no face.
yeah, so he can't tell if they're sick or not because there's no face. I actually didn't catch that joke. I'm glad you caught that. That's great. So yeah, I can
But
tell
it
how
turns
sick the
out the
student is.
vampire girl had taken the head to the nurse's office already,
Mm, well,
but wasn't strong enough to carry the body, so she needed to find
mhm.
help.
Hold on just a moment. I need to open my blinds a little bit
Uh,
so Toby doesn't wreck them when he tries to stick his head through.
ah, ah, that'll happen.
Anyway, so it's not revealed that she's a vampire just yet.
No,
Um, but
it takes a while
but
to
yeah,
reveal
she
that.
is the vampire girl, and
Yes,
they eventually go to the nurse's office. He's able to bring the body there, and there's
it's
the head of
absolutely
Machi.
revealed in the opening credits, though.
It's revealed in the opening credits, so it's not a spoiler or anything like that. It's just
No,
at this point in time, he
they
is
teach
unaware
us.
that she is also a demi,
Yes,
or a demi human.
right.
Um, takes the body to the nurse's office. He thinks it's incredibly weird, but he's not like he doesn't view it negatively in the slightest.
Now,
Suddenly, there's now two demis in his life,
yes,
and we meet Machi, and Machi is an adorable girl. She's an
she's
absolute sweetheart, and
yes.
she her head is resting on a pillow while her body rests on the bed.
Yep.
Um, anyway,
So
yeah, I'm just
in anime, I've only ever met 3 Dullahans before.
mm-hmm,
And the first one I ever met was Celti from Durarara.
mm-hmm.
The second one I met was actually from this. I had watched interviews with Monster Girls, at least the first episode or two, once before, but I don't think I ever finished episode 3. So I'm glad I got to finish episode 3. But yeah, I absolutely love Machi. She's great. The third Dullahan
Machi's a wonderful girl. Mm-hmm.
is the one that curses darkness.
That one, yeah, you're
Yes.
right. The one
Who's
that curses.
yeah. So yeah, and I'm just thinking about, Megumin blowing up his castle over and over again. Oh man. Good times. Okay. So we find out that Sato. No, who's the vampire girl? What's her name?
Hikari.
Hikari. Hikari. I just remember Hikaru is no, it is Hikari. Hikari means light.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, the vampire named Light. Um,
Mm-hmm. I'll just put a note there for you.
appreciate it. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
Hikari and Takahashi have developed this relationship, this rapport, where he's actually starting to interview her and get some information from
Mm-hmm.
her.
Oh,
And she comes to his office whenever she feels like
mm-hmm.
it, and she loves it
and,
in there because of how cool it is.
and
Things in there can't have direct sunlight because it's a biology lab, and so he
he
keeps things
learns that she's a
cool and a bit
vampire,
dark.
by the way. We should probably just point this out. He learns that she's a vampire because he asks her how she's so calm around a Dullahan. Most people will be freaked out over it. And she's like, oh, well, I'm used to it because you see, I'm a demi-human as well. I'm a vampire. So now there's 3 of them in his life.
Yes.
So
Oh, by that point, he had also he thought there were 3 in his life
that's right. Mm-hmm.
because they had already kind of introduced the Snow Girl. And so there's this teacher he can't talk to, he can't approach, the Doulahan
Mm-hmm.
that he can't approach, and this other girl that he can't approach without seeming kind of awkward or weird. And then
And
but
mm-hmm.
this blonde that he's been talking to this whole time without any problem whatsoever happens to be one as well. And so that kind of opens the door for him,
Mm-hmm.
which leads to um okay. So you have some notes about some questions he asked about blood sucking.
Sorry, I just went to the wiki or clicked on a page in the wiki so I could see better images of people's heads. It's
Uh
got everybody's headshots. It's got Sato, it's got Takahashi, it's got Hikari.
uh-huh.
Take a wild guess what the headshot is for Machi.
Is it around her waist?
It's her green head. It's the green fire coming out of her neck.
Ah! Oh, ages ago there was a Dilbert comic where
Mm-hmm.
they introduced a headless character. It was actually just Wally with his head stuck in his shirt.
I
But
remember
the
that.
point,
I
but the
remember that.
pointy-haired boss did not realize it was him, and actually asked a question in the meeting: "How do you show up on a head count report?"
I remember that. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so he asks her if it's okay if he asks her. Takahashi asks Hikari, the vampire, if he can ask her some questions, letting her know that he's always wanted to know about, you know, demis, but he's never really had the chance. And she says, sure. He's so used to being turned down, his natural reaction is just, oh yeah, I guess you're right. That's not very. Wait, what? Huh? You're okay with it? Yeah, why not? You're letting me hang out here. It's just fair. And so he starts asking her questions, asking her things like, okay, well, here's a bunch of information about vampires in popular culture. Um, can you confirm or deny these things? And she's like, oh, okay. What? No, I love garlic. That stuff's great.
Yeah,
Crosses, those became passe in middle school. And he's like, oh, this. I'll probably die if a stake's driven through my heart. And he's like,
that's probably
yeah,
true
no,
for everybody.
that's true for everybody. Which remind me of the great line from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
Well, what do we do? How do we take care of it? Just drive a stake through his heart. But what if he's not a vampire? You'd be surprised how many of the how many
You'd be surprised how many things that kills.
how many. Yeah, that's right. Thank you for saving
Yeah,
me from butchering the line. You'd
it's
be
fine.
surprised how many. You'd be surprised how many things that kills. And then he starts asking about blood and things like that. And she's like, well, usually I just eat normal food, but I get a pack of blood from the government once a month. And the beginning of the show talks about how for thousands of years, demi-humans were feared. But these days, it's now kind of considered just to be kind of an aspect of your life to be a demi-human.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
actually
just a
government
character
organizations
trait.
that are there to help you. And later on, we learn about a government organization that's entire job is keeping track of the succubi.
The way you
That
said
designated
government organization
episodes.
reminded me of that line from a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy about what voluntary organizations exist to help you rehabilitate after drinking a Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster.
Pan-Galactic Goggle Blaster. Anyways, so and she's like, well, I just get a packet of blood from the government every month, and that satiates those cravings. It's totally fine. It's not really in the first few episodes, but like she does still get the desire to bite people. And her younger twin sister, she's got a twin who's not a demi. They kind of explain that as saying that demis are more like a genetic mutation. It's just kind of random who it happens to and not. Because both her parents are normal humans, but she's a vampire.
Okay.
And her sister's a normal human. So there's this great shot in the manga where she walks up to her sister and like kind of does a little bow thing, and her sister's reading on the couch, and her sister just goes, puts her arm out, and then he kind of comes over and just starts nibbling on her arm, not breaking any skin, just kind of nibbling on it because she's got those cravings to bite flesh.
Okay. Now,
and it's just really cute scene of Hikari just being so happy.
I don't know what episode this is in, but I've seen this GIF, and it's a conversation where Hikari is talking to Takahashi, and the words, and this is in reference to whether or not she wants to bite his arm, and she says, "It's too big, it's too hard, and I'll probably get hair in my teeth." And he says, "Never say those things together outdoors." To which it pans over to the Doulahan and the Snow Girl, and the Snow Girl is covering her face laughing because she gets it, and the Doulahan's just looking at her like, huh? What?
Yeah, there's a couple of dirty jokes that I forgot about. I didn't write any of them down, but there's a couple of dirty jokes. But we learn here that he then asks, have you ever bitten anybody? And she says yes once. But it's for her, it's not really an issue. She's very, very clingy, like very, very friendly to other girls and things like that. But she's never had a desire to bite a man. And he's like, oh, really? Why is that? And she, being a 15-year-old girl, gets super embarrassed and says that, well, I think it's because, maybe I have to be in love with the person to want to bite them. Which kind of seems to be, well, I know one other example of that in Japanese, in manga. It's I think we talked about it before. I think I may have had it as a recommendation of the week once. I became the Demon King, so I created a dungeon and lived with monster girls or something along those lines. A 12-year-old, he saves the life of a 12-year-old vampire, and in order for her to survive, she needs to drink his blood. She's escaped from a bunch of slavers who want to do horrible things to her. He saves her life, and she bites him. Well, this is the manga that has the sweet tooth dragon.
Okay.
And Lethe, the sweet tooth dragon, she's in her 14-year-old loli form. Well, she looks like a 14-year-old girl. She says, "You let her bite you?" Yeah. Don't you know what that means for vampires? No. And she explains it's pretty much a marriage proposal.
The same thing happened in Actually I Am.
Oh, that's right. That's been a while since I've seen that one.
In Actually I Am, the main girl is revealed to be a vampire, and the main boy needs to keep her secret for her. But during a conversation, he asks if she wants to bite him, and apparently, biting is such an intimate action taken between two people that to say something so casually is kind of slutty. Which plays in like one of the later episodes because they have they do a haunted house for the school festival, and one of the attractions is a vampire, who pops out and goes, "I want to suck your blood." To which she's like, "How dare you be so slutty to me?" And she berates him back into his coffin. Like, she doesn't like it. She's scared of everything but the other vampire, and berates him into like, "How
I
dare you?"
love that.
Like
I
that.
love that she has a Kansai dialect. It's like a country hick dialect in
Yes.
Japan. Is how she speaks. She's very, very graceful, very beautiful, but she's just got this thick Kansai accent.
When she tries her
Anyways,
best to when she tries to best to hide when she's in public.
mhm. um,
But it's
but
great.
anyways, he then apologizes because he didn't realize how personal of a question that was, and he says, "Well, that's all for now. You can go to class now." And she's like, "Wait, what? We're done?" He's like, "Yeah." The bell then rings. He's like, "Yeah, go to class." And she's like, "Fine." And she gets up and she turns around and she looks at him. And one of the great things about Hikari is just her facial expressions.
Yes.
Like she has the most animated face out of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just because it's an anime. She has far and beyond the most playful,
She is the
wicked,
mischievous character.
devilish expressions. Huh?
She is the
What was that?
mischievous character.
Yeah, she is. She definitely is. And they have a lot of fun with her face. But anyways, she then looks at him and looks down at his neck, and there's a gleam in her golden eyes, that kind of a red gleam,
Mm-hmm.
and she leans close down into him, opens her mouth, and camera
And
cuts, and he
plays.
goes, "Ah!"
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, it plays like she's gonna lean in to bite him.
Well, yeah, and then like he turns around after grabbing his neck, and she's holding two mechanical pencils with this kind of a sly grin on her face. She's like, "Ha! You thought I bit you? Ha 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 ha!" Yeah, so they have a very, very fun relationship. Those two. It's very,
Yes.
very much a casual, just kind of a casual, fun relationship that they've got going on.
Right.
Anyways,
So that episode, I'm pretty sure that the way that episode next goes is she goes is we see the Dullahan again. We see Machi trying to make friends at school, but the friends keep kind of glazing over the fact that she's a Dullahan. They don't want to offend her. They don't want to cross a line, so they keep tiptoeing around her existence, trying to be friendly, but also trying not to be insensitive. But that tiptoeing around is also kind of keeping her at a distance, and she wants to be close to people. She wants to have jokes about the fact that she's a Dullahan told. Um,
oh,
so so what happens then is, as everybody's packing up, getting ready to go, that's when Hikari enters the classroom, and then
mhm,
just talks to her like old friends, just completely curious
casually, like
about her,
it's nothing.
so casually, to the point where it actually makes other people in the classroom a bit uncomfortable, like, "Oh my gosh, she really went there." But
Mm-hmm.
she's enjoying it and
But
she's
as
liking
they're
it.
chatting, some other girls walk up and join in the conversation and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Start helping to break the ice.
Well, it turns out that um, Machi would really, really like to also have a relationship with Takahashi. She's kind of jealous that um, Hikari can just talk to him so casually and just visit him whenever she wants. And so a plan is wrought at the end of episode 2 that is absolutely adorable. And like there's a
Mm-hmm.
knock on so Takahashi's the way episode 1 ends is Takahashi's in his office again, and there's a knock on the door, and he says, "Come in." And the door opens, and he turns around, and there is Machi's body holding a note without a head. It's like, where's your head? And so
Well,
she comes in
this.
to hand the note,
Uh huh.
and so he approaches her and notices that Hikari is crouched down on the floor holding the head, just just outside of visual range so that she can hear what's going on. And
And they are
he totally sees her.
whispering to each other. They're
Yeah,
whispering to each other.
they're whispering to each other, and he catches them, and he totally sees them, and he lets them pretend that they haven't been seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes her hand briefly. It touches her hand briefly before taking the note, just to let her know what's happening. Kind of a forewarning, but she kind of gasps a little bit at being touched.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and he takes the note and says, "I don't know if your body can hear me, but yes, you can be." Or I don't. Does he? I don't remember. Does he write a reply, or does he?
He
Um,
writes like
he
he has written a note to give to her,
okay.
and the two girls are like, he gave me a reply. Yes, yes, let's go. Wait, no, we can't read it here. We gotta go. And so they get up and they just run off, and he hears them through the door.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, the reply is that yes, she can go. She can come over anytime he likes, anytime she likes, and then she just has a
mm-hmm,
subtle grin on her face, and it's just
mm-hmm.
a delightful little shot, and that's the end of episode 1. Now,
Real,
something that
real
I wanted to talk
fast.
about before going into episode 2 is the ending
Uh-huh.
credits. Now, the ending credits features each of the main 4 girls holding or interacting with a book in a way that indicates that they are books. So, bookending the opening and closing credits with each other, he's interested in books. Each of these girls is a book. He wants to know more about them. He
Okay.
wants to find out about them. So, so there's a visual cue that I really like that was tied in the opening and closing credits with these characters.
Okay. Um. Oh, real fast. I found an article. Just kind of, I wanted to see if there was any more Doulahans in anime, and yeah, there are. Turns out there's a Doulahan in Monster Musume, Lala
Hmm.
from Monster Musume. She is also Chiningyo.
Chinibyo Dulahan.
Uh huh.
That's going to be
Yep.
great.
I forgot this, but Yuri Alpha, the leader of the Battle Maids in Overlord, she is also a Dullahan. That's why she has
Oh,
that kind of metal ring around her neck. It's holding
she
her
does
head
have.
onto her body.
Oh, I see. We haven't seen that yet
Mhm.
about her. I don't think.
Well, it's in the they kind of play with it in the kind of silly Palladius series, that kind of little silly chibi animated, the chibi style show, that never really came to the States. You can find some clips of it on YouTube.
Okay.
But also two characters, Dune and Hans from Slayer's Evolution R. They are, which is a continuation of the Slayer series.
Yeah.
They're Doulahans. Um, and in The Devil's Part Timer, he has two bicycles named Doulahan and Doulahan the Second.
Bicycles.
Yeah. I mean, they're just named Doulahan, but yeah, he names he names his bicycle the Mighty Steed Doulahan.
Okay.
So, anyways, I just wanted to go and share that there's some more examples of Doulahans in anime. So yeah, episode 2.
Episode 2
Um,
starts with now sometimes shows will do this.
oh,
Sometimes shows will assume
before
that
this,
you haven't watched the first episode. And so they kind
we
of introduce the second
uh-huh.
episode in a way that that maybe you missed the first episode. So it kind of gives you a little extra exposition at the beginning.
Real fast though, in episode 1, this is something that we didn't cover. Machi, the Doulahan,
Uh
is getting spoken to by Hikari. This is when they're at their desk.
uh
And she's like taking notes and her head's on the table and things like that. I forget exactly what it is that Hikari says, but Machi says no, and instead of just saying no, she picks up her head and shakes it while saying no.
Picks
So
up her
yeah,
head
I
from the
wanted to say that I
pillow.
love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this episode, well, the first episode, kind of focused on Hikari.
Yes.
Not a ton, but this one focuses more on Machi.
It actually, well, Hikari is an absolute catalyst for the events that happen in this. Like the things she says and the things she does brings the group together. She's kind of an assembler of this group in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
things that she does. Um, and so it basically the first episode really did focus on her relationship with Takahashi and how her relationship with other demis brings him in, helps him achieve his goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings up a lot of interesting points. Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the second episode starts with the interview between Machi the Dullahan and their teacher Takahashi, where Takahashi keeps asking questions but can't decide what face to focus on: the flame
Mm-hmm.
coming out of her neck or the head in her lap. And he's just trying to grasp what it might be like for anybody to have to see this sight.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a bit of a talk, and they talk about, does your head always have to be close to your body? And she goes, no, not at all. I mean, it's entirely possible for my head to be in one place and my body to be another. The furthest they've ever been, she drops the name of two cities. I can't remember which ones, but it sounded, I don't think it's exactly right, but it sounded like Okinawa and Tokyo, being that
Mm-hmm.
she had visited her grandparents and they had such a hard time saying goodbye. Her head was on the outside of the train as the doors were closing on the body that's on the inside of the train, and it drove off.
Yeah, yeah. So I looked up the distance between Tokyo and Yokohama. It's 20
Yokohama.
miles. It's
Okay,
about
you wrote it down.
20. Yep, it's about 20 miles.
Okay. Well, they're about to conclude their interview when Machi asks a very embarrassing request, and it takes her a long time to get the courage to say it, but she asks for a hug from Takahashi. And the act
Mm-hmm.
of doing so causes her such embarrassment that one of the things she does when she's in a state of extreme emotional duress is her neck starts vomiting fire, like blasting
And
it
his eyes are just locked on
on the fire.
this explosion of fire coming out of her neck and hitting the ceiling, not doing
Yeah.
any damage. But he also asks if, like, he one of the questions he asked her is if it was okay if he could touch the fire, because he wanted to know what it was like. And she's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And so he touches it, but when he touches it, causes her nerves to kind of react.
Uh-huh.
So it's like touching a part of her. It's
Yeah,
not a very
it
comfortable.
causes pressure on her nerves, is the way the subtitles read it. So, but technically, all pain is a form of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what happens then is he agrees and he cuddles her head
Mm-hmm.
into his chest, and she absolutely loves it. She says it's something that, as a Dullahan, there's just something about being a Dullahan that she craves closeness with someone. And her
Mm-hmm.
parents used to do this for her all the time. But after middle school, when she got into high school, they said she's a little old for that now. And so maybe she needs to stop. And
Mm-hmm.
but she can't. She needs it. She craves it. Um, and so he's doing that. And then he realizes, you know, we can do this in private, but it'd probably be really bad if anybody found out about it, like the principal or one of my superiors, and it starts going in slow motion, particularly loudmouth blonde vampire.
Particularly loudmouth blonde vampire. And like he turns
And
and he sees her looking right in,
opening the door and looking right in. And that's
and
when
she
one of her expressions.
immediately she gets a smuggoomin face.
She goes half Smagumin, half Saki from um you remember? Did you ever watch? I don't remember if it was episode 3 or 4 of Zombieland Saga, where they go to a
Mm-hmm.
hotel. With that, they go to a hotel where they're having some sort of meeting, but there's also a hot springs there. But they're zombie girls, so they can't go to the hot springs. But they decide to go late at night anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
Saki, the biker chick of the zombies, she has a pretty epic animated GIF of her face going smug during that particular moment. I was like, I want to go with you too. Yes, yes. Um, Hikari gets to be. I think Hikari is deserving of the Smug Anime Girl Hall of Fame.
Yeah, she's got quite the smug look on her face.
And it's not the only
Kind of
time that
incredible.
face comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh, it comes up a
she?
lot.
Because she immediately runs to a window, opens it, and starts shouting at the top of her lungs, "Hey, everybody! Guess what?"
And then he chases after her and chases down the hall.
Okay. So setting up the next punchline during the interview before the hug, something he suggests is, she starts talking about how she wishes her friends would be more willing to talk about her existence as a Doulahan and make jokes about it. And he recommends that she make jokes about it first. If she breaks the ice, it gives them something they can rise to. But if they start making fun of her in front of her, they might feel really bad about it. But if she can, kind of set an example of what's appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
that would work out. Um, well, right after Hikari starts shouting her lungs out, trying to blow the secrets for the whole school, Machi turns to Takahashi and says, "I guess you'll be a Doulahan too." What? Because once they find out, your head's gonna roll. Like,
And he's just like,
this is
that's
that is not a joke I can laugh at.
that is not the joke. Yeah, that is not a joke I can laugh at. It's pretty great, not gonna lie.
Yeah, then he runs to go stop her, and the secret's still safe.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in that episode, there's a scene where um, Machi is telling Hikari that she has feelings for someone and she wants to go out on a date with them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, what would you do as a date? And there, this, that, and the other thing. The conversation gets a little bit it can cross borderlines from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
but not too far.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
implications, mostly implications.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's what happens next. Um, but when it's revealed that the person she wants to date,
She fell for the teacher when he was hugging her. So
so she wants to
yeah,
date him.
she wants to date Takahashi.
Yeah, but he's a little old for her. I mean, we established that
Mm-hmm.
she's 14 to 16, and he's, you know, 32 to
32,
30.
33. Yeah, yeah. So about 17 years older than her, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But with a moment that it's revealed who it is that that he likes, Hikari just gives her another one of her smug looks, stands up next to her, and starts calling someone, and we don't know who
immediately.
immediately. Like, who are you calling? What are you doing? And then suddenly, on the over by suddenly there is Machi dressed up nice, ready for a date, and Takahashi standing out in front of Hikari's house.
Mm-hmm.
And Hikari is like, it says, okay, so this is an experiment. In the event that Hikari goes on a date, in the event that
Oh no,
Machi goes on a date,
Machi. Mm-hmm.
that those dates might include just her head. And so we'd like to run an experiment where we find out if there's any problems with going on a date with just a head, and if we can solve those problems now before an actual date happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's cool with it,
He's
thinking it's
all
just an
for
experiment.
experimenting.
Thinking it's an experiment. She's excited because she's actually getting to go on a date with the teacher. And she spent so much time prepping her outfit just to have Hikari go, by the way, your body's staying with me.
Yeah, well, and like she has this incredibly, oh my gosh, she's got this great montage where she's trying on all these outfits because Hikari's like, Machi, or not Machi. That's how you say a city. No, it is Machi. Okay, yeah, yeah, Machi. You really went out today. And she's wearing this really cute outfit with like some frills on the shoulders and things like that. Really, really cute looking. And she and Machi then blushes, and there's this great scene where Machi's like, "Oh, this whole thing, though, you don't have to worry about. It's nothing. It's nothing." And we cut to just a little bit ago where Machi was getting ready for the date, and her head is on a pillow, aimed at her closet, while the body is trying on all these different outfits, and that's like, no, that's too much. So it kind of reminded me of those scenes that you see.
Too much.
Yeah, it reminds me of those scenes where but it reminds me of a scene where it's like a montage, someone's trying on clothes and everyone's judging them like, oh yeah, that's too much, that's not enough type thing. So yeah, that's something that I enjoyed. I thought that was a cute use of her head. And there's also a scene, I don't even know if it happens yet or if we passed it, but Amachi getting ready for bed. She puts out her futon. She's got a little doghouse next to her bed that she keeps her head in.
Yeah, yes.
It's
a plush dog or a small animal palace shaped house. I would call it like a cat house, like a large cat, small dog. But yeah, her head sleeps there with I think that happens in episode 3 though.
That might be episode 3 because she also wakes up as she's falling asleep. She wakes up because she realized she was telling herself a joke, and she wrote it down on her phone. Or her body got up, went over, showed her typing it out on the phone so she could make sure she got it right, and then went back to bed.
Which reminds me all the time about how Celti communicated. She always had her phone with her so she could type out her responses. In Durarara. So it's like, well, that's a thing too. Then what happens? Oh, okay. So there's a bit of abuse that happens between Sato and Machi's body while Machi's head is out on a date. Including the fact that Machi suddenly needs to go to the bathroom. So she gets up and bangs her knee on the table. And then trying to take care of her, Hikari gets up to see to check if she was okay, and she bangs her toe against the leg of the table. And so now they're both side by side rolling on the ground going, ah!
Yeah. Well, like this kind of happens later on in the date after, she and Takahashi have, Amachi and Takahashi have gone through the city, did some things together, and she's starting to feel gross. And it turns out she's getting motion sickness because he's not carrying her the way she's used to being carried.
Right. And so her head's bobbing back and forth a little bit.
And so then you take a break and she go to the bathroom. She ends up needing to go to the bathroom because she drinks the juice.
Yeah. And so her body needs to go to the bathroom. And it's at that moment that now we've already been introduced to her, but we kind of skipped over the fact that she exists. But we have at this point met Hikari's twin sister, who's not a vampire. And what happens is her sister comes home from her school, just to watch Hikari lead the headless Dullahan by the hands into the bathroom, and the sister's just sitting there like, "What is this? Why is there this headless being in my house? And why does it need to go to the bathroom?" It's like, and then once the body is in the bathroom, and the door's closed, Hikari turns to her sister and says, "Oh, that's just my friend, the Dullahan. What did you do with her head?"
It's cute. It is really cute.
It's great. Okay. So yeah, so all of episode 2 is the interview with the Dullahan wanting to go on a date, and the Dullahan getting to go on a date, which I can see that being 3 different chapters in the manga, all rolled into one episode. So yeah, this thing is paced pretty good. It just keeps your interest, keeps you going. Episode 3, the big thing that the big thing that happened in episode 3 has got to be the conversation between the Dullahan and the succubus in the in the literary
Well,
room. They're putting up books.
that's near the end of episode 3. Episode 3 starts off with showing Sato,
Not to the succubus, how she lives her life.
showing how she lives her life, and she lives out in the boonies. She wakes up at 4:15 every morning to eat breakfast, get the early train, the first train of the day, and get to school. And she's at school before any of the teachers. And like because there's nothing for her to do, she ends up cleaning the entire teachers' lounge. The teachers' offices. Um, and they go through the day, and she sees Takahashi having fun conversations with Hikari, and like Hikari being super energetic like she always is, and saying things like "Good morning" to him, and he's like "Morning," and she's like "Not enough energy," and he's like "Good morning" type thing. And she sees that and you can tell that she's jealous.
Yeah.
She plays it off well, but she spends her entire day avoiding men and she keeps saying it's because I'm a succubus. I do this because I'm a succubus.
Mm-hmm.
One of the students, like she's walking down the hall, and a male, I just dropped something. Let me pick it up. A male student accidentally bumps into her, and just by bumping into her, he then turns around and he's just completely enamored with her.
Yes.
And we kind of skimmed over this, but the reason that she dresses the way that she does is because she's a succubus, and any effort in making herself look good would make her even that much more alluring and attractive to men.
Mm-hmm.
A female student comes up and asks her a question about a math problem, and she says, "Oh, you just used the formula that I taught you today in class." And the student's like, "Oh, awesome!" And then the student looks at her, and she says, "Teacher or sensei, you're absolutely beautiful. Why don't you do anything to, why don't you dress up? You would have men all over you," type thing. And she's thinking to herself, "The reason I don't want men all over me is because I dress up this way because I don't want men all over me."
Yeah.
So anyways, she then so this
She ends up
male
taking the
student
last.
bumps into her.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. The other student bumps into her, and she's trying to keep her distance.
Yep.
Eventually, she
The
goes.
student bumps into her, instantly attracted to her, and the student's just like, "Dude, I thought like for a moment there, I thought I bumped into like talking to his friend. For a moment there, I thought I bumped into like the sexiest woman in the world," and that's just from touching her once,
Yes.
just like a brief brush up.
Yeah, and they're
And
both
she's talking.
and there's a brush up, and there's clothes on both of them in layers, so it's not even direct
Mm-hmm,
skin to skin contact.
mm-hmm, yep. And she then it's the end of the school day, and she's there to turn off the lights. So not only was she the first one there, she's the last one out. She catches the last train home, and she even falls asleep on the last train home. And you learn why she lives out where she does, because she cannot control her abilities when she's asleep. Any man who's asleep near her, um, instantly has sexy dreams.
Yes.
Just incredibly erotic dreams.
Yes, which
Anyways,
apparently why they're called dream demons is something that comes up in the show, which
yep,
again reminds me of Konosuba.
yeah, but he signed up for Konosuba. It's just that poor little succubus charm got picked on by Aqua.
Yes.
Aqua, who thinks she's doing something good and should be praised for it.
Yes.
But anyways, the succubus. So Sato then goes home, and she cuts loose. Takes a shower, has some beer, eats, goes to bed, wakes up the next day, is at school, and she's just exhausted. She's like, "I knew this is what it was going to be like when I took this job. I knew that I was going to have to be out there by myself, um, because I can't be around. I can't live in an apartment complex near the school because everybody in the apartment complex will be affected by my powers.
Yeah.
And so she lives out in the boonies by herself.
And
And
in fact, there's like 4 or 5 different shots of her walking down long, empty roads from her house to the train station. She is in the middle of nowhere.
yep,
And they really hammer that home.
Mm-hmm. And she is exhausted and falling asleep on her feet while she's walking through the hallway, and she falls. And Takashi catches her.
Yes.
And she kind of feels bad because she sees that he's a good guy. He sees how he treats the other demis. And she realizes that she wants to be involved in that. She wants to have that kind of a friendship. But she doesn't want. But she thinks that she came off too strongly before.
Yeah, she now thinks she burned the chance to talk to him.
She thinks that she ruined the chance. But he catches her, and this time it's by her hand, skin to skin contact.
Yes.
And she immediately looks up and thinks, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, please, oh no," because she's just touched a man.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Sato Sensei, are you all right?" And she's like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "You should try to get some more sleep. You should like, go ahead and rest if you need it," type thing. And she's like, "Oh, okay." He gets up and walks away, and she thinks to herself, "Wait a minute," and because in the shower that night, she thinks about love, romance, relationships, and things like that, and how she can't have those things because she's a succubus. She'll be constantly asking herself, will they be attracted to me because of my powers and not because of who I am? Because of not. And then she thinks to herself, wait a minute, maybe I can have a relationship with somebody if my powers don't really affect them. Maybe if they have a low sexual libido, my powers won't affect them, because he walks away and he's not affected at all. Like, he's not blushing, he's not hitting on her, he's not doing the things that she's used to when men accidentally touch her. As soon as he's out of view, what does he do?
As soon as he gets out of sight, he is plastered against the wall. Just his heart was pounding the whole time. He was instantly aroused and did everything in his power not to react. He did not want to come across as creepy, which is would have been his first impulse. With that, like, oh, she was so sexy. Oh, what was that?
Holy crap, succubi are incredible. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. But later on, and this isn't in the show. It might be in the episodes we haven't watched yet. But she has a handler, and because succubi, their powers don't manifest until puberty.
Okay.
As opposed to like vampires and Dulahans and things like that, where it's their powers are with them for their entire lives. So she was assigned a handler because, yes, bad things can happen if a succubi gets touched. Someone can like instantly turn into a rapist when they didn't mean to, simply because of her powers of sexual arousal.
Yes.
So a lot of succubi just choose to live their lives in seclusion in a locked up government facility just so nothing happens.
Right.
She's one of the few that doesn't want to do that, so she's doing what she can to live a normal life. And this her I just said what he is, and I'm now forgetting. Her handler.
Her handler, yeah.
Is kind of like a father figure to her. Okay. And they chat every once in a while over the phone, and she opens up to him because he's like a father to her, and talks about this incident where she's fallen for this teacher, and the reason she's fallen for him is because he has a low sexual libido, which means she might be able to have an actual relationship with him. And he's just like, that's not possible. And she's like, you're a succubus. No man who touches you will not be aroused. That man was probably just acting like a gentleman and not wanting to embarrass you, which makes her fall even harder for him. Later on, she's talking about how she's using, she's still dressed up frumpily and things like that, and trying to do her best to avoid attention. And he's just like, Sato, part of my job is to prosecute and interrogate succubi when we think they may have been involved in an incident. It's a very, very difficult, rough thing to do, and I hate doing it. I have known you since you were 14. You are a good person. You've done everything in your power to not use your powers for wrong. How about for once in your life, you use your powers to seduce the man you love? And she does so. And like, there's this, they have like this barbecue, and she's wearing her jumpsuit, and she's like, oh, it's so hot, and she unzips her jumpsuit, and her ample bosom is underneath her shirt.
Yes.
And like, she leans on the table, and she's like, what the crap am I doing? This is so embarrassing. And she looks up at him, and he's just like doing his absolute best to stay under control. And she's like, oh, he does find me attractive.
Aww.
So yeah, it's cute.
He's trying to be a gentleman.
Anyways, he's trying very hard to be a gentleman.
Aww.
But anyways, so that happens later on.
Later.
But let's get back. Let's get back to the now.
Yes.
So let's get to the library. She has.
So the Dullahan's been asked
Sato
to
and
bring
the
a
Dullahan
box.
Moxie are putting books away.
Well, before leading to that, Machi has been asked to take a box of books to the library. But whoever asked her did not take into consideration the fact that she'd also have to carry her head with her as she's going. And so she ends up asking Sato to help her carry these, like, oh yeah, your teacher didn't take into consideration when she asked you to do this, did he? It's like, yeah. Well, they end up having this long conversation about well, Machi assumes because Sato is older and a succubus that she has lots of experience in relationships, and that is talking to her about relationship advice. Now, the funniest thing about this moment is, as they're putting books on the shelf, the titles of the books are what they're talking about.
It's so great.
Time. It's just like the moment. I don't have specific examples, but like the moment Sato is actually jealous that Machi is thinking about the same guy she's thinking about, the book that is put up there is jealousy, or the moment that Sato's talking about finding somebody really attractive and kind of wanting to date them or be with them in a romantic way. The book that's put on the shelf is young burgeoning love, or growing into womanhood, or something like that. Just every single book that goes on the shelf is what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's great. It's so much fun. But yeah, but Machi's just like, yeah, well, who do you like? Like, oh no, Sato just like, oh well, what lucky student in our school has caught your eye, type thing, and trying to be a mature adult, even though she has no experience with romance because she has kept that part of her life away. Like she's locked that away because of those questions she's had about whether or not they would actually love me for me, or if it's because I'm a succubus. But anyways, so Sato asks, so what lucky student has caught your eye? And Machi, she's a pretty honest girl.
Yes,
so
she's honest and innocent. So
honest, innocent, and I'm pretty sure that the fire coming out of her neck would give away any lie she was trying to tell anyway.
She reminds me a little. She's not as emo. She's not as emo as Raven, but she reminds me a bit of her. Like anytime that there's a bit of an emotional outburst, uncontrolled power comes out.
Yeah, that happens Raven's a lot. Yeah. But anyways, Machi's then like, well, it's they're at the school, but they're not exactly a student. And Sato's like, well, wait, what? Yeah, it's Takahashi. I'm in love with Takahashi Sensei. And then Sato's just like, I am too. And just kind of has an inner monologue with herself.
Yes.
And it's a really, really funny scene where Machi is trying to get advice from this person who obviously has so much advice in the world of romance because she's such a mature, beautiful woman.
Uh-huh.
Um, and Sato putting on a pretend face to try to give Machi advice when really she's has no experience whatsoever, and all of her internal monologues are just kind of not really ripping herself apart, but yeah, she's not being too kind to herself.
No, no, she's
So,
not.
mm-hmm. But she's talking about all the kind, like Machi's talking about all the great things with Saito, with Takahashi Sensei. It's like, oh, he's kind, and Sato's just like, yeah, yeah, I know, and like he's smart, yeah, yeah, I know, and he's got such great muscles in his arms, to which it's like there's a shot of him just going, like
Yes.
and
With these,
he's a buff guy, he's a big built guy.
yeah.
To which Sato just goes, I know.
She's lusting after him in this conversation, and Machi doesn't know what's going on.
And Machi's
Like,
like,
what?
wait, what?
Huh?
Huh? Because she's too innocent. If it was, if if Hikari was in the room, she would have caught it.
Oh, yes.
Hikari would have caught it like that.
Yeah,
But
so
anyways,
Machi's just too innocent.
yeah. But she keeps asking questions, putting books away, and every single time the answer is always tied to the title of the book.
Yep.
But like at the very end of it all, Sato turns to Machi and just says, Machi, there's something you need to understand about adults. Most of the time, the confidence that adults show, it's just them putting on an act so they don't make younger people feel nervous. And Machi's just like, oh, are you like that too, Sato sensei? To which Sato replies, who can say? And then instantly inner monologue, I am! I am totally like that.
Yes.
But episode 2 or 3 ends with Yuki the Snow
Yeah.
Woman. Yuki is actually snow in Japanese, just
Hmm.
so you're aware.
Okay.
But she overhears people have been constantly asking her to hang out, and she keeps turning them down. And some of the girls are starting to speak negative, and she hears those girls speaking negatively about her,
Uh-huh.
and she
She cloisters herself somewhere and is having a bit of an emotional breakdown, and the consequence of that is that she causes the area around her to get cold when that
mm-hmm,
happens. In fact, so
mm-hmm,
the episode ends with um, Takahashi um, saying, okay, so the episode ends with um, Hikari going, Takahashi, sayonara, as loud as she can, saying goodbye. And he goes,
mm-hmm.
sayonara. Not enough energy. Sayonara. All right.
Sayonara.
All right. That's good enough. You can go. And so as he's leaving, he ends up walking into a cold spot. And so wondering what's going on, he goes further into it and sees Yuki. Is that, did I get that right? Her name's Yuki.
Yes, Yuki. Mm-hmm.
Sees Yuki huddled on the ground, not uh, um kind of crying to herself. And seriously, one of the hardest things I had to do was stop watching at that point,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's when the episode ends, and it's like, all right, what's that? What's next? Next. Don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be
Now you know
finishing
how I
this.
felt reading the manga.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. I've been waiting for a while for Volume 7 to come out.
Well, they say sometime late 2020 we'll get a season 2 of this show.
Yep. Good thing Volume 7 of the manga comes out on the 24th of this month.
Okay.
So, anyways, yeah, that's it for interviews with Monster Girls. What are your final thoughts of the show? I mean, it sounds
I
like you want to go back and watch more.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back and finish the show.
I think so too. I mean, even though I've already read the manga and know what's coming, I really want to see how much they're able to do.
Right.
Um, I kind of want to see, because I know that I was reading some of the episode descriptions of what happens later on, and I do know that her handler is introduced. Sato's handler is introduced.
Mm.
But anyways, it's a great show, great manga, adorable characters, great animation, um, laid back. There are some cliffhangers like we saw at the end of episode 3, but those cliffhangers get resolved pretty quickly, and Yuki becomes a regular of their group after they resolve a couple of things with her. One of the great things about this about the manga is that the girls, there isn't a lot of information about themselves, about their own demi race. So he actually helps them do experiments to figure out themselves as it
Mm.
progresses. So, but no, it's a lot of fun. I love the manga. I can't wait to watch more of the show.
Fantastic.
Okay.
All right.
So next week it's your pick. What did you pick?
It is. Now you've been talking about the manga for this thing for a while, and I thought,
Oh, the
it's
manga's done.
the manga's done.
It
Okay.
ended last week. I read the last chapter.
All right. Well, the anime is available, and we're going to be watching Boarding School Juliet next week. In the spirit of
Schools with a twist.
Schools with a Twist, Boarding School Juliet. The synopsis reads: At Dahlia Academy, a prestigious boarding school on a remote island, students from two feuding countries battle each other every day. However, Romeo Inuzuka, the leader of the Toa dorm, and Juliet Persia, the leader of the West dorm, start a secret relationship. Okay. When I read that synopsis a little bit earlier, I thought not just Romeo and Juliet, but West Side Story as well.
Well, that's what West Side
Well,
Story
which
is.
yeah, West Side.
It's Romeo and Juliet the musical.
It is Romeo and Juliet the musical, but
Mm-hmm.
it is its own thing as well. So if it's referencing
Mm-hmm.
both and being
Mm-hmm.
its own work, that'll just be interesting thing to note. So,
Yeah.
all right, we're watching this next week.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's it for 3 episodes in. Let's move on to recommendation of the week. And this week, it's my turn, and I'm going to go ahead and recommend the amazing expansion to Monster Hunter World, Iceborne.
Hmm.
15 new monsters added, a brand new area, a new hunter rank. The higher the rank, the more difficult the battles are. There's low rank, high rank, and now they just released master rank
Ooh.
to kind of give you kind of an idea of the difficulty spike. The best armor set, and I'm not talking about, like, a lot of people will piecemeal their armors together and get the abilities that they want. But individual armor set, the best one that I found without adding any extra things to it to make it stronger, base level 371 defense.
Hmm.
The very first set of master rank armor that you can get
Mm-hmm.
is over 590.
That's quite the jump.
Yeah. Yeah. The lowest armor, the stuff that you can get almost right away. That's how much harder the fights are in Master. And it is fun. I'm having a
Okay.
blast with it. They've already announced another monster. So it's going to be 16 monsters. This one's going to come out as free DLC on October 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And honestly, and my favorite monster is in this one as well. The Zinogre. Go ahead and look him up. He reminds me of Behemoth from the Final Fantasy games. He is a massive wolf covered in hard shell and electric fur. So he's. I'll go ahead and I'll send you a link to what he looks like. So.
Okay.
Here we
Well,
go. This is a
all
good
right, I'll take a
picture.
look.
Yep, I'll just send it to you right there so you can take a look at it. Anyways, I'm very excited to fight this guy again, to carve him up and go ahead and make weapons out of his body and armor out of his body. So yeah, that is my recommendation of the week. There's no better time to jump in and play some more Monster Hunter, you guys.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps up recommendation of the week. So now
Mm-hmm.
it's creator shout out, which is my turn this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I am giving a shout out to someone I've met on Twitter by the name of Ben Nicholas.
Oh.
Now, Ben Nicholas, I shared his art studio, his art station account with you earlier tonight, and you've seen some. And now that you've seen some of his work, um, he is a senior concept artist and designer at Ubisoft. Has done some amazing artwork. Has apparently actually worked on the Halo games back in the day.
Okay.
But he's got some amazing 3D artwork, mostly ships. Just fantastic levels of detail. Um, Absolutely stunning. I have told him on 2 separate occasions that I would absolutely love to work with him on work with his assets on a video game that I build. And I hope that someday we can actually do some collaboration. That'd be really cool. But okay, so
Yeah.
we've got his Twitter account and his ArtStation account. So come to this episode's page on whittakerweekly.com for the links.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's it for another episode. Thanks so much for listening in this week. If you listened in on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do and want to support us, please share our channel with your friends. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, whittakerweekly.com, currently has the links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference, and if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us on one of the ones we've mentioned, and we'll broaden our scope to include you.
All right, well, that's it for another week. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Ben Coombs for providing the artwork for our podcast.
And another shout out to Brasmataz for their song Dreikolk, which we use for our opening and closers.
Well, thank you so much for listening, you guys. I've been Andrew.
I've been Lee.
And this has been Whittaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.